Welcome to the Recovery Lab podcast. We're glad you were able to join us. Recovery Lab hopes to destigmatize addiction and normalize recovery.
Our platform provides an avenue to share the many stories of those that have recovered from addiction, providing for the listener the most basic antidote to addiction. Hope.
All right, everybody, we're back. This is episode 63 of the Recovery Lab podcast series. I'm Drew Hassan.
I'm Daniel Anderson.
We are the Recovery Lab. 63, getting up there.
How about that? 63.
So
Fantastic.
our faithful listeners will recognize Julie Crutcher over here, who was, I think, episode 61.
I think so.
Don't make me lie.
60 maybe?
60, 61.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Julie messaged me back, and they've got something really important they want to talk about. So she brought Leisha Pickering. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Drew.
So they both have an important message that they want to talk about today, and I don't want to take up time listening to me blabble on about it. Without further ado,
why are we here today?
Yeah, why
ladies?
are we here? What is this message you wanted to bring to everybody?
Well, Drew, thank you so much for having Julie and I come today. And we reached out to you because we have something and someone that's very important to us. And I'm Leisha Pickering, and I'm the owner of Musi, which is a luxury bath company here in Madison County where we make all our products. And it's a company where we sell all over the world. But the heart of our company, and I think the thing that really has defined our company, is that we have chosen to work with women with felony convictions that want to rewrite their story. And we have worked over the last 10 years. We've had over 200 women that have come to us from prison, many of them, probably most, with substance abuse issues. But they want to change their lives. And what we've seen is when a woman wants to change the story, and they have to have an opportunity. And often if you have a felony conviction, because of your past, people are reluctant to hire you. What Musi did is we partnered with a ministry called Crossroads. Now, Crossroads was founded by Vicki DeMoney. Miss DeMoney has a passion for women with felony felons, but primarily with women with substance abuse issues. So she's worked very closely with the state, and she's established a program. And women often that are coming out of prison, they've lost everything. Usually, many times they're alienated from their families, but they come out of prison with very little, and they just need an opportunity. Oftentimes, and as Julie shared in the podcast, she didn't even have a place to stay. She didn't have a place to go. Miss DeMoney provides housing and counseling and classes to help people reestablish their lives and get back on their feet.
Is this a state-funded facility, or how do people afford this? For those that didn't hear the first time.
Yes. So when I went through the program, and it's free. She's never charged anybody from the very beginning. But right when I went through the program, she signed a contract with MDOC. So, and primarily that's who she takes in, is people that are on parole, probation, or coming out of prison.
Okay.
Because she is funded by them now.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yes. And she provides housing, counseling, and now we're partnered with them, and they are located. Crossroads is actually, their offices are on the grounds of Musi. We have a big facility in Madison County that sits on about 6 to 8 acres, and we had a big pavilion with offices, and also now the Crossroads offices are there, and that's where the girls take classes and have received counseling. So we have a very close partnership with Crossroads. When the women have come through phase 1, then they're eligible to begin working at Musi when they're in the phase 2 program. They're still living under the care of Crossroads, but they are able to, they're at a place in the program where they can take outside work. So we hire them. and help them. And our belief in our company is that if you surround a person with a community of love and support, that they can really flourish within that. And I'm really proud as a company to say 5 people on our leadership team at Musi were women that had felony convictions, Julie being one of them. And as y'all mentioned earlier, she came and shared her story here. But we've seen like that that if you give a person just the community of support, love, and help, just create stability. Again, that they can really rewrite their stories.
Well, everybody
Absolutely.
gravitates towards stability, and everyone wants to feel like a functioning member of society, and everyone wants to feel like they matter and that they can contribute. And sadly, a lot of people just don't have the resources available to feel that way.
Absolutely. Once you get that F behind your name, it's
Yeah.
hard to come back from that in a lot of ways.
And a lot of women that come to us, they just feel like they have no value, no worth, no voice. And another thing is many of the women have had a lot of abuse in their background, and they come from families with generational addiction. And so even going back to their family is not a healthy place for them to be. So we have but they've been just the most wonderful also workforce for us. And like Musi as a company, I'm proud to say like everything we do has been made by hand by these women. And we're not even, as I mentioned, we sell all over the world. We've been on Oprah's list the last 3 years.
I saw you on the Today Show.
Yeah, we were on the
Yeah.
Today Show last week. We've been on the Today Show several times, featured on the Today Show. So, we're a company that we would hope that Mississippi would be really proud of, because we also tell the story of Mississippi, and
Absolutely.
we're trying to impact the lives of our community. We believe that as a company that our purpose is to love and care for our community, and it's creating opportunity. So we were here today because we have one particular woman that has worked with us over the last 2.5 years, and we'd like to share a bit of her story.
Please do.
Absolutely.
Well, about 2.5 years ago, a young woman named Georgia, Miss Vicky, who I mentioned, Vicky DeMoney, received a call from Steve Pickett. He's over the parole board, and he said, I have a young woman here. I think you can help. And Georgia came to Miss Vicky. Vicky, and I just want to give a kind of a picture of Georgia. She's this beautiful young woman. She's only 33. She's about 4'11", so she's just tiny. She's about 95 pounds. And she came to us, and, from the very beginning, we all loved her. I mean, she has a really warm, loving personality. She's a young woman that has had a lot of trauma in her past. Her father was murdered when she was 3 years old. Her mother, I think, remarried to a man that was was abusive, and Georgia, as a young girl, that was a very difficult and frightening situation for her. I can remember Georgia shared with me one time that she started using drugs at about 11 as a way to cope, and she said, I wasn't going to let him hurt me more than I could hurt myself. It's trying to have some sort of feeling like, since as a child, of having some control over what's going on in your life. She had a baby when she was, I'm not sure when she started using drugs when she was 11. She started, I believe, using heroin at about 15 or 16, and was a heroin addict for many years, up until about 2.5 years ago. So, but she's a woman that's had a lot of trauma, and she's a survivor. She had been in prison before, and she had a baby, and her grandmother was taking care of the baby for her, and rolled over on her infant in her sleep, and so she lost a baby. Had to go to the baby's funeral in shackles. She also had she was with somebody. I think she had a husband that overdosed, and then most recently, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, the man she was with, they both overdosed, and she woke up. He did not. I think at that point, she decided she wanted to change her life. She didn't want to live like this anymore, and she didn't know where to go for help. At that point was where Steve Pickett stepped in and called Vicki DeMoney. And Julie, you may want to add something there. I'm not sure. Julie's very close to Georgia. They work together in our front offices.
Yeah. So when Georgia came to Crossroads, Crossroads is the phase 1 is a 4-month program, and then she came to work at Musey, and she was working in the back. Started off in the back, and we had some issues with our receptionist at the time anyway, so we needed someone up front, to answer phones and just answer the basic email. And I saw Georgia, and I was like, she's really cute. I feel like, she can...
She has a real warmth about her.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like she would fit in good up here, And so we brought her up front, and, just since then, like, Georgia, Georgia has grown so much, and, I'd share my story with the Crossroads ladies, and she always told me, she was like, oh, you just inspire me. And, she was so excited about coming up front, and she said, I remember her saying, like, because Miss Vicki had shown the girls my office and told them, like, my story a little bit, and Miss Vicki was like, and she had said, I said one day I was gonna have an office up here, and like she was just so excited. And I saw Georgia go from like this, I just saw her mature so much into the woman that she is now. Like, she is a completely different person from the time she started at Musey to where she is now. She has just grown so much spiritually, and just in every way possible, and like I know that like everybody loves Georgia, like that talks to her on the phone. They all just adore her. Everything she does, like she works so hard. I've never seen anybody work so hard. And I've worked for Musey for a little over 7 years, and she's like a gem. She's somebody who is so loyal to Musey, loves Musey. She's loyal, and
as an employer, and she's like the kind of an employee that. I mean, she's just excelled. There almost aren't words to describe not only the growth she has, but I mean, just responsible. She just loves what she does, but is always striving to get better and to better herself, and just does an outstanding job. But aside from just the tremendous value she is to us, she's also just this radiant person. She's become this person that is just full of light and is so loving. And one of her roles at Musey is to talk to the customers that call. And we probably receive 3 emails a week commending Georgia and talking about, we work with over 5,000 stores around the world, and we get emails from everybody talking about just how she has lovingly cared for them.
What an endorsement, though, for your business/ministry model.
Oh.
I mean, if ever you needed proof that the formula produces success, it sounds like Georgia is it.
Right.
And we have, the truth is we're a family at Musey, and we're all friends, and we just love her so much. And, but I've watched this young woman against all odds to change her life. And though, I've learned a lot working at Musey and working with people that have had addiction issues, because that's never been in my past. And so my learning curve was really great. And but watching her as a person that used heroin just decide, I'm not going to do this anymore, and just to quit cold turkey. Like, she just quit. She just changed her life, and my understanding is that's almost unheard of. Like, I was reading about heroin addiction. It talked about 80% of people relapse, and but like if you met her, and it's almost like if you met Julie. Julie tells me often her story, and that's just not the eyes I see her with anymore. Like, she'll tell me these things, and I'll be like, it's hard for me to imagine, because I see her new self. I see the story she's rewritten with her life. It's the same with Georgia. She's rewritten the story of her life, and isn't that the goal?
Absolutely.
We all want a chance in life. We all go through challenging things, and we don't want that to define us. And Georgia would always say, I feel like this might always be carried with me. It might define me. And I said, I said, no, Georgia, we define ourselves. Nothing defines us. Not a situation or a circumstance defines you. You get to tell your story, and you get to help write the ending.
It's just so hard, though, when you're the drug addict and you've lived so long with all of the things that come along with addiction, the roaming nature of your life, and you're living here and living there, and
no stability whatsoever.
No stability, nowhere to live. It's always, can I get enough money for a room, and can I get enough money to get high, and can I get enough money for this? And there's always some sort of shenanigans around you, and
you're in a constant state of survival.
Yeah.
24/7, 365.
And then to really believe of yourself that you have innate value takes time.
And to feel comfortable
you have to build
in a place. Yeah, absolutely.
But I could see in Georgia how she began to see her worth and identify with that person that is a changed person. And when you see that in a person, it's such a beautiful thing. And the truth is, all of us surrounding her, we saw her in that same way. And I think that only encouraged her and helped her give hope. And one of the things her mother had been taking care, she has a 10-year-old daughter, and her mother had been caring for her daughter. And Georgia, we were helping her make provision to get her daughter back. She had just moved into another room, still with one of the Crossroads houses, where she would get her daughter back, which will provide stability for her daughter also. It impacts so many people, and so it's hard to find words to describe not only the employee that she's been, but also the person she's been. And I want to mention this too, none of us have lived lives that have not been touched with some sort of pain. And for me, I went through a divorce that was unwanted, and I was blindsided by, and I really kind of thought, do I have a hope? Do I have a future? So though I haven't been through addiction, I have been through something really difficult. And I was the mother to 5 young boys that I was responsible for. And it's hard to see a path forward sometime, but we all get the opportunity to rewrite our story, and then to share our story, to encourage someone else along the way. And one of the beautiful things I feel like in my own life, it was devastating to me. And, but Musi and my company has come out of that.
Helped you rewrite your story.
Right.
It has. And it's given me, I kind of, think I was married to a congressman, and I have spent time with the most powerful people in the country. And now God has placed me working with some of the most powerless, individuals that don't feel like they have a voice. But I know what that feels like. And I know what it feels like to feel like you're losing hope. And I know what it feels like to think that you can't change the narrative. And then I see that out of that and out of that pain, one of the things that happened in my own life is that I knew what it felt like to be vulnerable. I felt so vulnerable. And, but that feeling of vulnerability has helped me identify with the women that I now work with. And it's given me such a compassion. And one of the things I tell Julie and the women I work with, it takes a lot of strength to change your life and to change the story of your life. And I look at these women and they just inspire me too. And we're all kind of holding hands in this together, like we can do this. And one of the things with Musi that, we make these beautiful products, but what we do and our intention with these products we make is that our hope is that whoever the recipient is, that our product would give them a bit of hope, that they would feel loved because they're made with such great intention to do that. And so, I find myself in this situation with these women and seeing so much strength, and that's what I saw in Georgia. I know that you have to have a lot of internal strength to change your narrative and to keep pressing forward, when it seems like you have mounting odds against you. And I just watched this young woman, 33-year-old woman, just bloom into this beautiful person. So where we find ourselves now is 2.5 years later, she has still had an outstanding drug charge in Lowndes County. And the courts kept pushing it back. I think there's so much, the courts are so backlogged. But here she is growing so much, and then her sentencing and all the hearing and all kept getting pushed back. And so this past Monday, she and I will also say this: there was she didn't get a lot of good information of what from the court as far as what she was facing or what was going to be the consequences. She had a drug charge with possession or intent. I guess intent to sell, isn't that right, Julie? A drug charge with intent, and Georgia had a court-appointed attorney. I mean, she's a woman that, I mean, she has a full-time job and she's a salaried member of our staff, but she still doesn't have resources often. She had a court-appointed attorney, and then Vicki DeMoney felt like she wasn't being represented very well by this person. So she took what resources she has, which aren't a lot, and hired an attorney. And she was recommended somebody from another girl who I think had used somebody, a attorney from down on the coast. And I don't feel like she had a good communication as far as what the court was intending. But Friday a week ago, we found out that she was going to court on Monday, and they asked me, and again with just such short notice, if I could come and be a character witness. And so this is a person that I would do anything for. And also Vicki DeMoney, again, the director of Crossroads, she said that she would go, we would all go. And so we set out for Columbus a week ago, Monday morning. And my understanding was that, and I believe Georgia's understanding, is that she would either get drug court and or she would get house arrest. Seems like that was the two options. I can remember driving over there, and Georgia was really nervous. And I just looked at her and I touched her leg and I said, "Georgia, you don't need to be worried about anything. You're an overcomer. You're an overcomer, and I'm so proud of you, and everything's going to be okay." And I remember telling her, her mother is very, very ill right now and has kidney failure. And I remember saying, why don't, when this hearing is over, the sentencing hearing is over, we'll go by and see your mom before we go home. So that's kind of the mindset we were in when we got there. We get there, and Georgia meets her attorney for the very first time. it's a guy. I just think that he had communicated some with Georgia, but Georgia had never really sat down and met with him. And when we get there, he takes her away to. So Vicki and I just waited for the sentencing, and I had never. I've been in a courtroom, but I wasn't quite sure what the procedures were. It's not something I had experienced, and so we come in, like right as I'm walking in, the attorney tells me that he's going to put me on the stand, and like I I was willing, but I certainly wasn't as prepared, perhaps, as I would have been had I known I was going to do that. They swear me in, they put me on the stand, and they asked what my relationship was with Georgia. And much of what I described to you, I told the courtroom, and I told her that, what I said, and I want to say this, that she is a radiant woman. She is full of love. She is full of light. And how, as an employer, we couldn't ask for, more in an employee, but just as a person in our state, I just felt like she has so much to offer. And the DA got up and he says, I hear you say all this about her, and that's good, but and that's great, but what do you think? Like, she was arrested on this drug charge with intent to sell. Like, what is fair to the people of Lowndes County? What's a fair sentence, penalty,
Prosecutors are the most sanctimonious
Yeah.
lot. They're a necessary component of the criminal justice system, but they really are the most sanctimonious humans on the planet.
Well,
Prosecutors, by and large, they get off on it.
Well, he asked me that, and the truth is, I've spent some time in Columbus. I have a lot of friends over there. As he asked that question, what do you think is fair? I don't think life's always fair, so I really didn't even think that was the right question. But I said, I don't know that fair is the question we should ask, but what is right? And I said, this is a young woman that I've seen change her life. And so what's the right thing to do here? I would hope that our goal would all be the same, to restore people, to restore people to be productive citizens. And I said, I think that I would love to see y'all let Crossroads and our company Music continue to invest in her life rather than she just be a ward of the state. This woman's a tax-paying citizen now, And so what I would hope I just said, I would hope we all have the same goal, and that, I think you look at each person as an individual. And so I got down from the stand, and Mr. Money came up, Vicki came up. She did a tremendous job. She gave her whole background. She's worked with people with addiction for many, many years. And she's also worked with the criminal justice system. And she's very responsible. And she talked about Georgia and how Georgia had changed her life, how many times she's been drug tested over the last 2.5 years. And so we both sat down, and they called Georgia up. He told Georgia to stand up. And as I said, Georgia is very small in stature. This was a very intimidating man. And for a young woman that has not maybe had the same opportunities for not only education but resources, standing in front of him would have not only been intimidating for her, but a lot of women. And he began to ask her if she reads her Bible. So I realized that this is a man that identifies himself as a person of faith, and he started off telling her, saying, so you know what the number 7 is? Well, I'm a person of faith. I have been for since I was a young woman, and I know in scripture, like the number 7 means completion, but I didn't know what he was getting at when he was questioning her. And also, I didn't like the tone he was questioning her in. I felt like for her, if you're a woman that has had any type of physical or sexual abuse in your background, I believe the 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 tone of an intimidating person that has power and authority over you. I just watched her probably become like this little 5-year-old child again. This little 5-year-old person that was scared. And she stood there. She was kind of shaking. She could hardly speak. Georgia is a very introverted person anyway. Even though she's tremendously warm, she can easily be intimidated. She's very, very tender. And I knew she was scared. And he kept asking her, do you know what the number 7? And I'm sitting back there going, what is your point here? And so he started talking about how she had been in his courtroom every 7 years for a number of years. And I'm like, what does that matter? But he said, you were here in 2007 and 2014, and he just starts, and really what I saw is a man that made a person feels like that is trying to reestablish their worth. He treated her like she had little value, and that disturbed me because that shouldn't happen. God created us all with value and worth, and we all make mistakes. And so he began to question her. I felt like it was very intimidating, belittling. But then he said to her, and this was another thing I was really bothered by, because I thought it was also very condescending to Vicki and I. He says, I don't see any contrition in you. Well, I work with her every single day. I mean, Georgia is my friend. I know how I've watched her weep and have so much regret over the mistakes she's made. This is a man who she has no value to him. She's nothing. He's just another person in the courtroom before him. And he starts saying, you may have convinced those women talking about me and Vicki DeMoney, that you are contrite, but I don't see it. And the truth is, I wasn't even sure if she knew what the word contrition means. I just didn't know if she meant like, are you sorry? And she kept saying, you tell me how sorry you are. I want to see it, Georgia. I just don't see it. And like she froze up, like she was this little, like she's already, like as I mentioned, like a small woman, but she became I saw the little child in her, and she couldn't even speak. And he kept saying, he just kept calling her, you're just an addict. You're an addict. And then he said, and not only that, but he said you were trying to make other addicts by selling drugs to them. And she tried to object to that. She goes, that's not what I was doing. I was just trying to support my addiction. And he said, no, you were trying to make other addicts. And he just, just the whole manner. And at that point, like her attorney, he kind of intervened and he said, sir,
I guess he could sense that it was.
I could sense the whole courtroom. It just is like a kind of a dark. I went in just very hopeful. I maybe naively I was hopeful, but he started telling her that he could sentence her to 20 years in prison, and it was like I felt like somebody sucker punched me. I'm like, what in the world are we talking about? And it was just, I mean, it was almost like there was a darkness in the courtroom. I could hear Miss DeMoney. She kind of reached over and touched me. And I'm like, surely they're not going to do this to this woman, And he ended up saying that the one thing he kept saying is, tell me how sorry you are. Let me see it. I don't see it. and she just couldn't hardly respond. And he ended up he the attorney he said, I could give you 20 years. And then I think the attorney at that point said something to the effect of, well, we are hoping like for drug court or for we were hoping for drug court or house arrest. And he said, I don't trust either one of those. None of those work. No, and and then I was sitting with Mr. Money, of course, behind him. Neither one of, and I looked over and I said, Vicky, stand up, because Vicky works with women that are on house arrest all the time and works very closely with the probation officer. And so Vicky did stand up, and she said, Judge, can I say that, I would like to ask you to let her be in my care. Like, I work with women that have been in house arrest. I work directly with the corrections partner, and he just said, no, that's not even an option. That I don't trust that system. I don't believe it. I think he kept saying the DOC. I have no confidence. I have no faith in that. And I mean, she just basically sat down, and then he started saying, he said, I'm going to give you 8 years. And like, I'm like, I just couldn't even believe, like, 8 years. Like, and the one thing that I am aware of is that there's many drugs in prison. So you're putting an addict back into a situation, a person that's been clean, and you're putting him back into a very challenging situation and a very difficult situation. So at that point, I stand up, and because I want to say, like, Judge, wouldn't you consider like something else, and he just looks at me and he tells me to sit down. And I think I was just so angry, I mean, I just felt this anger in me, and I just stood there, and he said, there's nothing else that you can say. There's nothing either one of you women can say that's going to make a difference.
How dismissive.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, this guy's a piece of work.
Yeah, he was dismissive, and
He can't possibly have that many people coming to testify for and on behalf of those that he's sentencing. He couldn't possibly, I mean, this would have to be a unique occurrence.
Drew, let me tell you this. I could have filled every bench in that courthouse. And I had told him that when I was on the stand, I said, not only... And had we been prepared, had we known, we could have filled that whole courtroom up with people that would have spoken on her behalf. She is I would have called my customers that deal with her daily. We would have had so many more people there. She's an active member of a church, and part of going to Crossroads is you have to be a part of a local church, and you have to go every week. We would have had her pastor there, all these people that love her, but we didn't know. We didn't have the information that this was even an option. And so, I'm standing there, and he tells me to sit down. There's nothing I can say. And then I didn't sit down because I was just felt
Flustered.
like I needed I just felt like I think that when things are unjust, you stand up for it. When you see injustice, you stand up, you take a stand. And I stood there, and then there were two big officers that came toward me that were going to make me leave. But I looked at him, and I just told him not to touch me, that I would leave. And I walked out, and I was angry. And Vicky, who stayed in there, and also I'm going to mention Georgia's aunt was in there, and Georgia has an aunt that is, all I can say is, a survivor, but she broke down weeping and begging the judge. But I had left the courtroom, but they ended up giving Georgia 8 years, and they dismissed, I guess, or suspended 4 of them. So they gave her 4 years. And I walked out of that court, and they took her away in shackles. And I still, even sharing this story, I can't believe what I witnessed. But like, the one thing I know is that I was angry. And then the next day I went to our staff, and I had to, tell them what happened. And everybody was, I mean, I'm going to tell you, everybody wept over her. She's a beloved member of our staff. They were weeping, and I wept too. And I felt helpless. But then I do believe that you take your anger and your feeling of sadness and you turn it into action.
Hence your appearance here today.
Yes.
Right.
And so I just decided that I am going to become a part of trying to change the way we view it, not only view addiction, but in helping, like Mississippi is a state I love, but we have a lot of work to do in our state, and there's a lot of things we need to change, and one of them is the justice system, and here we are. It like Georgia was a salaried member, as I mentioned, of our staff. And I had asked that judge, let us invest into her rather than she be a ward of the state. Well, it takes about $100 a day, I believe, to support a person in prison. So about $3,000 a month per person. And over a course of a year, that's about $50,000. You know, this is a person that, you know, that could be a person that was continuing to move forward, but I believe that she's had a great setback. But if I can continue to, I believe things happen for a reason. I will say this. I have called everybody from the governor's office, any attorneys I know, anybody that might have some info, insight. And we called you just to not only to see if there is anything we can do to change this narrative, the situation, but if we can't change Georgia's situation, let's at least start changing the narrative for other people and changing, like, just being like, we can do better than this, I believe. And we got to do better because we're just warehousing people. And I look at programs like what we do with MUSI and what Crossroads does. It almost is like why not invest instead of the prison system, invest into programs like this, because we're seeing results. And as I mentioned, 5 people on our staff not 5 people on our staff, 5 people on our leadership team, like directors in our company, are women that had at one time had felony convictions.
There are libraries, entire wings of law libraries devoted to what's wrong with the criminal justice system. And it's just there's no easy solution. To that judge, he feels like he's the one that's responsible for meting out punishment. And some judges enjoy it, I think, more than others.
Well, he definitely had power in his courtroom, and he let us know that he was the authority, and he is. He is the authority there. And I do want to say this, like, she was guilty, but, like, maybe we start looking at what she made a mistake, but I don't think that justice is always the same. I mean, I think there's other ways to look at, the person, and I said this to the judge, the person she's hurt the most is herself. She's lost a lot of her life, but she's 33 years old. She has so much ahead of her. And here I am, such an older woman. I know what she has ahead of her, and she has a 10-year-old daughter that she, that needs a mama to invest in her life. And, there's so many other options. And so why aren't we investing in those? Why aren't we, if what we're doing is not working, then let's look for other solutions. And that's what we're trying to do.
I hate that he wouldn't at least consider drug court. Drug court does have, there are a lot of success stories coming out of drug court. And especially if you have a participant that's willing to be sober.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I went through drug court, and
I had a client one time that was like, "Get me anything but drug court," because I'm not.
Right.
They were like, "I'm not going to stop doing Dilaudid, period." Yeah. And when you have someone that's towing the line, God, it really is heart wrenching. Yeah. And sadly, there's not a great deal that can be done for Georgia, except for our listeners. If y'all want to write her supportive letters or put money on her books. I mean, there's not.
I want to go to what you said that everything happens for a reason. I do believe that with every cell in my body, and I also believe that if she manages to stay sober through this experience, that on the other side of this, her testimony and her ability to help other people will be compounded time and time again by her experience that she's going through right now. And I do feel a little bit better when you said, Julie, that she was walking around the jail with her Bible and somewhat of a positive attitude, or has somewhat of a positive attitude. And my hope and prayer is that she can sustain this level of peace that she has, at least how she's portraying that she has right now, for the entirety of her sentence. And then on the other side of this, countless people will be helped by her being able to say, hey, you know what, I went through this also. I went through this sober. And if I can do this sober, you can do this. And that may change a life. So one changed life will make this experience profitable. I know right now it doesn't appear as though there's any way that this experience could be profitable to anyone, but it is what it is.
But it can be.
It can
Yeah.
be.
It can be.
The worst and most horrific things in this world, God can use those things too for the betterment of others. So I think that if she can stay away from the drugs and alcohol, because we all know there's oftentimes more drugs and alcohol in prison than there are on the outside.
Look,
in
Georgia,
certain
if you
senses.
ever get a chance to hear this, my favorite writer says, you never know what worse luck your bad luck saved you from. And I have to tell myself that pretty often sometimes, because it just seems pointless and meaningless, but Georgia can get meaning out of this, and y'all can get meaning out of it. Already I've thought, okay, what are the lessons to be learned from this? And you two having the input, and you're going to have other women who have pending charges. And now a little bit better about what judges like to hear, so that you can help those ladies build better bulletproof resumes. Well, Judge, you want to see how I'm contrite? Here's how I'm contrite. Another lesson to be learned from this is you always want a lawyer from the place where that's been in front of that judge.
And one of the things he kept saying, the attorney, the judge would say to the attorney, now, where are you from? Where are you from? And he's from the coast. And, I was sitting there thinking that this attorney went in there. I think he was a little blindsided too, because I don't think they had given him fully the information of what they were considering. And I thought, I wished we had somebody that was experienced
knowing
with
the
this
peculiarities of that judge. Because that judge wants to, sufficiently convince me that you're sorry for your poor behavior. The next judge is going to say, well, show me how you've been a member of the workforce. Every judge has those things that are important to them. And
I think the word contrition, I think about that. And to me, contrition is you change what you've been doing.
I hear you.
You go the other way. And that's exactly what I saw. I mean, though Georgia couldn't articulate it, Vicki DeMoney and I certainly articulated on her behalf. She has changed her life, and that is what contrition or repentance really in the Bible. It's like you're going one direction, and then you turn and you go the different. You like you just turn and you go a completely different way.
Look, she could have been up there and given some lengthy and learned diatribe, establishing just how sorry she was, and he wouldn't have been satisfied.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like he was just offering
his
up
mind
things.
was probably made up.
It was.
I think that he, in talking to, it's interesting because the next day I ran into a girl that knew Georgia and didn't realize Georgia was from that area, and was very upset over the fact that she was having to go back to prison. But she knew this judge, and she said, oh my, he throws the book at everyone. I mean, I think that's kind of how he rules with a fist. I don't know, because I one of the things I have done is I've just really thought, is there something more I could have said or are done on her behalf. And I think Vicky thought that too. We talked a lot about it on the way home. Like, is there anything more that we should have said? We really were quite unprepared because what we were saying was off the cuff, but we really came to the conclusion that his mind was made up before she walked in there.
It was. It
And,
was.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
We just didn't understand that. And so, however, as you said, we do now. And I do want to, just the fact that you said, and both of y'all were saying, I do believe that beauty comes out of the depths of pain. I believe that. And I've seen it in my own life, as I mentioned, that when you feel like you can't go another step, you just take one more step and you keep moving forward. And I think I always think about this, like, I love books, and so in any great piece of literature there's always conflict, and often the beauty in the story is how the main character responds to that conflict, and it often determines the outcome of the story. And it's the same in our lives. It's how we respond to the conflict, to the pain that we encounter. It gets to help determine our own lives. And I always think about that with my life. Like, we get to help write the ending. We get to help write the story.
Well said. I mean, pain and suffering are part of the human condition,
Mm-hmm.
and that you've had pain or suffering is not unique. But yeah,
and it comes in
I
different
love
ways.
that. How you respond to it is what matters. I mean, hopefully, 8 years, sentenced to 8, 4 suspended, 4 to serve.
She'll
do
a
what?
year. 25% of it, which is
Okay.
a year. She
We're
is
hoping.
eligible.
We're hoping.
She
for that.
is. She will be able to go to satellite. So
We're hopeful.
yeah, we're hopeful. We're gonna try to get her to Flowwood, and we're just gonna love her and support her through this. Y'all, if y'all just like, I don't know if y'all have ever been to prison, but like I have, and I had nobody to write. Just I had 0 people. My family were very like tough love. And so Georgia has so many people that have just poured into her. We have created like a thing where everybody at Musi can message her, and she can't get physical mail right now. So we've all been writing her. We've FaceTimed her. We've all rallied together, and like people made a Christmas list for her daughter, and so she also works for Aqua, which is Miss Leisha's best friend, Miss Susan Barnett, and like y'all, she bought like most everything on her Christmas list. There's also another child that her aunt is also raising, so we made a Christmas list for her, and her daughter's birthday is on December 26th. So we're gonna. I'm going to go down there and actually take her stuff and get her daughter like a little cake and have like a little birthday thing for her daughter. Just make her feel loved. And like her daughter has been texting me like every day. Georgia asked me to like, just please just love on my daughter. And like, I've been there and like, I know what it's like to have, other people like raising your kids and like, so I just want to love on her daughter and like just let Georgia know like we got you, like we're gonna take care of you through this year, like your job is here. Her room is secure, like Miss Vicky's not giving up her room, all of her stuff, like we're just trying to make sure that like when she comes home, like she comes home to exactly what she left.
So she maintains that hope.
That she
Yeah.
has a big, beautiful, warm homecoming.
Yeah.
And like one of the things just even over the past week is seeing all these people that love her, and many of them on the Musi staff just rally around her, to see them be heartbroken over this, but to step outside of their own comfort and to look for ways to love and support her, encourage her. And I want to say this. I've talked a lot about Georgia and the beautiful person she is, but I just just want to mention this too. Julie is been with Musi for 7 years, and she's just transformed her life, and she is just this radiant person who has been just that. Like we couldn't even do Musi without Julie. Like Julie's a person, she said, people gave up on her, but I don't think we're ever supposed to give up on people. I just don't. And I think that we are all called to have, and especially if you're a person of faith that identifies as a believer, that we're supposed to see worth and value in everyone. And I look at Julie and she's like my sister. And she, we haven't walked the same road, the same paths. Our lives were very different lives, but they merged together. And truthfully, they came together because both of us, out of something that was very painful in both of our lives. But she's a person that has just inspires me, encouraged. I mean, the things that she has just invested her life into Georgia over these last 2 years that Georgia has been with her. She's been a woman that said, "You can do this. You can do this." I have been there, but look where I am now. Like Julie lost everything, and she, reinvented her. I mean, she has a home. She got her children back. She has a job. She has a car. And she's just been such a beautiful example, not only to Georgia, but to all the women that work at Musi. So
Here.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
It is, it is our mandate. Find something profitable in your own shenanigans, help the next man or woman. And, when you can learn to get something good out of your consequences, then you've done well.
Right.
You have recovered appropriately.
Yeah, I think it's important to maybe, and you and I can talk about this after the show wraps, but I think that perhaps we should focus on capitalizing on your passion and your desire to help right now. And you mentioned the parole position and things like that. Like if for any reason you want to start a podcast of your own to be able to kind of work through these issues,
To have a platform.
I am more than happy and I am passionately excited about helping you do that if that's something you want to do. So,
I would love that and look for any opportunities that because Musi, what we want to do is the one thing with Musi is and I want to say this, I had no business background. I'm a creative person. So the growth of Musi has not just been, it was a small idea that started in my kitchen. Musi has flourished because a lot of people, all these women and many other people on our staff have invested and had a vision for what we're trying to do in our state. And so we've watched this growth, and we've had opportunities, like we've mentioned, to be on national broadcast and as an elevated brand, as a luxury bath product. But really, we never want to lose sight of really what our mission is. And our mission is to not only invest into life, but to help change our state. And if we can ever use any of the platform of Musi to do that, and whether it be through podcast or opportunities to speak, and I would just welcome that.
Sure, absolutely.
And I just appreciate you offering
Of
that,
course.
because I feel like I've just learned so much, but I feel like one person, can't. I always say this is a little thing I always think, you can't really change the whole world. It's a little overwhelming. But you do have the ability to change your world, the community that you have been placed. And the one thing I just feel very strong about is that we are supposed to represent the underrepresented. We're supposed to represent the least of these. Scripture talks about that we are to represent the people that maybe someone doesn't see any value in. And there are many people in our state of Mississippi that are poor, that haven't had the same opportunities for education as perhaps we have. There are many people that are looking for hope And I want my life at the end of it, and I'm older than everybody in this room, but I want my life to have counted for something. I mean, I want to go out strong and feeling like, at least I made I made one little mark. And so right now, like I will say, I never thought that I would be like
given that
working-
opportunity.
Right.
Yeah, and like look at the pain that what I went through really opened the doors to where I am now.
Sure.
And the just and even though I had shared that, it gave me, I believe, the platform that I have now and that Musi has now and that Julie has. Julie has a tremendous platform and tremendous insight and knowledge about the justice system. She lived that, but I do think that we have to make some changes. If our state is ever going to move forward, we've got to start the conversation, and that's what I was hopeful of today. So I just really appreciate you giving me even this little opportunity to
Well,
be
we
on your
thank you for taking the time to come and talk about it, because this is certainly, reasons like this are why we have the podcast.
That's right.
Is to give people a voice and allow people to learn, because substance abuse disorder affects everyone in every way, whether you know it or not.
From doctors to attorneys to everything in between, to homeless folks to everything. Addiction is everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
Well, if anybody wanted to write Georgia, do you want to say what her last
right
name is?
now,
Or?
right now you can't.
Okay.
Because she's not. Right now she's in county. We want to get her to CMCF because, anybody that's ever done any time, prison time is much easier than doing county time. County time is very idle. So we're just working on that, trying to get her over there, so that, she can start this journey. But I wanted to say this, I have full faith in Georgia that she is not going to mess up. She's not going to let this, let her fall. She is when I talk to her, she is so, she cries, is she cannot believe, how much love and just how many people have just poured into her since this has
Well, she
happened.
certainly sounds deserving of y'all's
Yes.
devotion.
100%.
Yes, she really is. And me and her talked about it, and she knows that this is for a bigger purpose. She knows that, there are people's lives that she's going to be able to pour into, that she can say, hey, look, people that, because, when you go to prison, and you've been there before, you see people that, have just, they're just rotated right in and out, because they go right back to that life. And you have Georgia that has completely turned her life around. And so she's going into this not in that mindset, because she has completely changed her mindset at this point. So she's going to be able to pour into people that
Absolutely.
that she
would have never had
would
an
have never
opportunity to
had
hear
that.
about.
Yeah, and they can
music.
see her and see hope. Be like, oh my gosh, if you're doing it, I can do it. And I really believe that. I believe that Georgia is going to be a light to people. And I told her, I said, when you get to MDOC and you get their yellow jumpsuit, we're going to be on your visitation list, and we're going to come see, you're going to get a visit every week. We're going to rotate, but we're going to come see you, and we're going to bring your daughter to come see you, and you're going to get through this. And it's just a year, You've done a lot more, you've done harder things, and you can get through this. So I really, really believe that she's gonna get through this and be sober.
One of the things that people suffer with the most, especially in and around addiction, is failing for a lack of options. Mm-hmm. And it's not that they don't have the options, but they don't know about them. Mm-hmm. And not knowing about them is just about as pointless is not having the options to begin with.
One thing the judge kept asking her that disturbed me was he kept saying, you could have asked for help. Why didn't you ask for help?
Yeah.
You could have asked for help. He said it numerous times. Why didn't you ask for help?
Like he's going to, is he going to pay for her to go to treatment?
Well, he was saying before she got this last charge, well, why didn't you go get help? Why didn't you
go
get help?
Well, who's she supposed to call? I'm going to call the sheriff. Maybe he'll fund my stay in it.
Yeah, and there's many people that they don't know how to get help. They know they need help. I can't think that Georgia enjoyed that life, but she didn't know.
No,
She-
nobody
You're in that
does.
addiction,
and she didn't know, and he kept saying that. But then she finally said, "I got help." And
Why
she
not
did
ask
get
her
help.
why don't you just not do heroin in the first place? Oh, that's an even better idea, Judge. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
She did get help. She's been sober for 2.5 years. Like,
And he acted like
He said that he was like, well, why couldn't you have gotten it here in Lowndes County? He listed a few of the places that are, I guess, treatment places you can go to. He listed a few places. I'm not sure if she knew any of those places. But like also, maybe she wasn't at a point in her life at that time to get help or know how to ask for help. But I did want to address, you asked if people wanted to encourage Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing, she can't receive mail right now, but what I was thinking when you asked that is that she can, if you wanted to write a letter to Georgia and maybe tell your own story, that would encourage her. You can send the letter to Musey, and we'll collect them all up.
what's that email address? Do you have that?
you can email them. I'll give them
You
mine.
can email them, or you could send her a physical letter. Our address at Musey is Musey. It's 123, like 123. That's easy to remember. Watford Parkway Drive.
Spell that for us.
Watford, WATFORD. It's just like it
And
sounds.
then
Watford Parkway.
It's one word. Parkway's one word.
Yeah, Parkway Drive, Watford Parkway Drive. It's in Canton, Mississippi. Julie, what's our zip?
39046.
Yeah, 39046. Or if you wanted to send an email, what do you think our best email would be for her to? Maybe Georgia. She has an email, georgia@museybath.com, and we will forward those to her, georgia@museybath.com.
Yeah, that's good.
And we can just forward all her.
And they can just put a subject on there, letter for Georgia. And what we can do is we're praying we can get her to MDOC really fast. But we can either send it to her over the message, and then once she gets to MDOC, we can mail the letters to her.
But I would love to see, it's like Christmas. Maybe I'm thinking about letters to Santa, but wouldn't
Yeah.
it be so fun to be
Have
able to
all these
deliver
letters.
a
Yeah, I
whole,
can print emails and just we can mail them to her.
with people encouraging her and maybe sharing, giving her hope. And I was just thinking about this as I'm sitting here and we're talking about Georgia, but I think about how many people in our state and during this season that just need a little love right now and need some encouragement and maybe are losing hope. And that, so I was thinking about your viewers, like thinking maybe that person in your life that maybe you need to reach out to, you haven't reached out to, and, picking up the phone and maybe just calling them and saying that you care about them. It may be it may be someone that's struggling with addiction. It may just be someone that's struggling with loneliness. It may be someone that's an older person that just needs to know that someone's showing up for them. We have so many people. I think we're called to care for people. And one of the things I've always loved about Mississippi is our spirit of hospitality. And, I've always heard this, that Mississippi per capita is the most generous state in the country. And I think that so just be generous with your love and your time. Maybe it's just going over and spending an afternoon with somebody and just saying, yeah, I'm here for you.
Well, I'm here for Georgia to be a guest on the podcast next
Yes.
week.
Absolutely.
Whenever I did my podcast, she watched it and she was like, I want to do that, and I said, well, I was going to ask you, but Georgia sometimes is kind of a private person. And I said, I said, Georgia, because the beauty in it is, when you see somebody and you meet them and you get to know them, and then they tell you their story, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like I would have never known that that you were a drug addict or that you had addiction, issues with addiction." And I was just telling her, like, you just got to be raw, and you got to just tell your story, and then people see where you are now, and that really encourages people. And she was actually going to share her story with Miss Vicky's girls a few times to kind of prepare
Get used
her.
to it.
Yeah, but I was going to reach out to y'all about her doing her story, and but I have faith that she'll share her story with y'all whenever
We're
she
here
gets
for it.
out.
Yeah, one thing I always
And-
tell Georgia, and I think that with any of us, a lot of times telling our story, there's a little shame in it. You feel a little shame. And I mean, I'm going to say, I told you I went through a divorce, and I felt embarrassed by that. I felt like it marked me, or that there was something wrong with
Scarlet
me.
D,
yeah,
huh?
like, that I was just, like I felt very discarded for one thing. I felt like, that very unloved and like I was just discarded. And so I felt like by telling a bit of my story that perhaps a person would see me as that. And one of the things I've said with Georgia is the more you tell your story. I mean, I'll tell you, even with me, I hated the word divorce. I never saw that I would go through a divorce, that being a part of my life. And I can remember even going in a doctor's office, when they say, are you single, married, divorced? I wouldn't check it, because I just felt kind of shame. And I tell Georgia, I think she has a lot of regret and a lot of sadness and a lot of the things that have happened in her life. She as I told the judge, the person she hurt the most is herself. But I also think when we tell our story and we begin to share our story, there's a lot of strength in that, like in being able to say, this is where I was, this is a part of who I am, but look where I am now, that's a place where we can gain a lot you
and healing.
And
You really
Healing,
heal.
absolutely.
healing,
And
absolutely.
learning how to weaponize your
Yes.
own issues, your divorce, our addiction problems, and the consequences that come with it. I mean, it's been truly rewarding.
Yeah.
Really, it has.
And look how I look at y'all. I mean, y'all created a podcast, and all these listeners that you're able to give hope and to have a place, a community where a person doesn't feel alone. Isn't that what we all want in this life? Just not to feel alone.
One of the driving motivations for having the podcast was, showing people that you can screw up in life as badly as I did and make it out. And if I can, because I'm an awful, awful drug addict, like all the way in there, completely devoted to it. If Drew can somehow manage not to shoot up in the Dollar General bathroom, then you can too.
Right.
Yeah.
You can too. I
But-
mean,
but the
how many
truth is-
times did I nod off at the Whataburger?
But the truth is that there's somebody that needs to hear just what you said.
Right.
Because that's where they are.
And I did all
in
that having a law
moment.
degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a law degree. My parents wouldn't let me in their house.
Yeah.
My mama would give me peanut butter, though. Thank you, Mama.
I wanted to add this. Her name is Georgia Salone. You asked
Okay.
me her name.
Well,
and
I
forgot to-
didn't know it, but I wasn't going to say. I mean, I was just
Yeah,
gonna,
you were just
so,
saying if
people want,
wanted to-
And my hope is we're talking about Georgia. I want to talk to Georgia for a minute.
hey, Georgia, we're rooting for you.
I'm hoping that you get to hear this, and at some point I think you will. But I just want you to know that you are deeply loved and cherished by us. And we see all the beauty in you. And we've watched that for the last 2.5 years. And you have been a precious gift to our company. And we're not giving up. We're here for you. And we're going to be waiting on you with the most welcoming arms. And I want to thank you for being a tremendous light, like this beautiful, radiant person in my life. And we just love you so much. I speak not only on my own behalf, but for every person at Musey. We all miss you. And, just coming up there is just not the same right now. We just, your beautiful, radiant self is not there. But we just, but the door's going to be open for you, and we're going to be waiting on you.
What a beautiful testament to the work she did.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we all really felt like we had lost somebody, like someone had died, because it was just so sudden. And
well, for y'all's behalf, I mean, for y'all's benefit, I used to have a boss who, when things would go wrong, he would say, "Y'all, we need to have autopsy without blame." And really, now that I reflect back on it, a way to look at things that had an unfortunate outcome, and what can we do differently next time? What can we learn from this? Mm-hmm. And there are things that Mr. Money, that you can think about differently. Like next time somebody has a lawyer from another town, you can say, "Hey, fella, you need to find out about A, B, and C, so that when we do go testify on the next lady's behalf, you'll know better."
Yeah, we were just so naive, and part of the part of that is part of the problem. If you don't know how to navigate the justice system, I mean, I called the governor's office the other day, and I was speaking to someone in his office, and he was like, "Well, she should have asked this, and she should have known this, and y'all should have done this." And I'm like, "How would
There's
we
not
have
exactly a
known
handbook.
that?"
No.
right,
Yeah.
it's like
And
like
that was my question.
like Adam's.
How will we know that? How do we know to ask those questions? And I was the man I was talking to. I go, "You're an attorney and you've been a circuit court judge, but that's not information that most people would have or know to do." And so
Adam said, it's like playing a game that they created and you were never told the rules.
yeah,
You have
Right.
no idea how it works.
Exactly.
And
Well, and not all lawyers know the rules. I mean,
right.
You don't want a divorce attorney to represent you at your sentencing hearing. That's just not his thing. He might be the greatest divorce attorney on earth, but
Right.
this isn't his area. And
I will say this too, it's also a personality thing, like I know Georgia, and Georgia, like, there are some people that are very outspoken, and, you ask them that and they're going to tell you their whole, explain to you everything.
exactly.
But that's just not Georgia's personality. And like Georgia's so sweet and warm, and
I don't
when
think
she's
that
comfortable,
would be any woman's
when
person.
she's when she's in her comfort zone. But you take Georgia out of her comfort zone, and like she
I don't think anyone that has
has
had abuse, that would be how they would respond.
Right.
I think
It's so hard to be able, because you only, and this has with all areas of the law, you only have a few minutes to paint the picture you want painted for that judge. And you only have a few minutes, really, to get across to him the information that is most important and most supporting of your position. And again, it underscores the need to have an attorney who's familiar with that court, because he knows what that judge likes to hear and knows what is important to that judge. Because, think about Rankin and Hinds County. On one side of the Pearl River, you're going to prison forever for what you've done. And on the other side of the Pearl River, it's,
they might lose your paperwork.
Yeah,
Well, none of
time
it's,
served.
None of it's just. I mean, there needs to be. We need to have reform in our justice system all the way across the board. I know that for me, just having gone through this experience, I'm committed to be a voice in that and to help with that. And for that judge, Georgia was just a number, just a person that came before him that he didn't know. To me, Georgia is is my friend. She is a person with so much value and worth, and it would have been hard to have adequate words to describe how much she means to us.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Well, look, we're kind of nearing the end of our budgeted time. Y'all got anything else you wanted to say before we sign off? How lucky Georgia is to have y'all, and how
No
lucky
kidding. No kidding.
And And we feel like we are lucky too to know
to have her. Yeah.
One day she'll hear this, and
She
it
will.
It will bring her a
One day
great
she'll be
amount
in
of
here.
joy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, but it's just with your listeners. I'd like to ask if any of y'all have any ideas, any suggestions, or want to be a part of the solution, contact us. And I would love to hear from you. Julie, our team at MUSI, we want to begin to start the conversation and putting together some coalitions to affect change in our state and hopefully in our country.
And if y'all need to reach out to us, we can help y'all get in contact with them for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, ladies and
All right,
gentlemen,
we're
thank you
out.
so
Thank
much.
you. Thank
We'll
you.
see you
Yes,
next
thank y'all.
time.